Welcome to the Windows Computer and Technology channel, and as we have a second video talking about the 8th anniversary of Windows 10, my question on this video to you guys would be, if you had one positive thing and one negative thing about Windows 10, what would it be? What's the positive that you like, that you found was great? What did you dislike? Is there something that you just didn't like? And, one of the things that I was thinking about is, so we're going to Windows 11, Windows 12, Windows 10 will be at some point in 2025, a thing of the past. And I can't help but think that there are major versions of Windows over time that got an impact. Windows 95, to some extent Windows 98, and of course older than that, Windows 3.1. But then we have Windows XP, which I think was one of the most loved operating systems of Windows, followed by Windows 7. Windows 7, undeniably, another really loved operating system for Windows. And I think Windows 10 has achieved that, part of being loved and people enjoying an operating system for Windows. And of course, there's always, every time there's something new in Windows, why is there a new Windows? And this isn't new of Windows 11. And even the minimum requirements, a lot of people going crazy. But over time, Windows had minimum requirements that were always going forward. And there are many times when minimum requirements were quite high to move from one version to the next. One of them particularly, two of them actually, that I lived through because I was a tech guy. The minimum requirements for Windows XP coming from Windows 98 for most people was a big change. The amount of RAM needed, and the amount of RAM needed for it to run well too. The amount of disk space, the requirements for hardware and graphics and all of that. People have a short memory when it comes to the minimum requirements. And I think it comes from the fact that we've enjoyed over time with Windows 10 such a long period of, well, if you had Windows 7, you could move to Windows 10 for probably more than 90% of all the PCs out there, and it was fine. And that is something unique to Windows 10. Minimum requirements weren't really much higher, so most people could move on. And it was, of course, the first time that Microsoft said, hey, you can upgrade free to Windows 10 if you have Windows 7 or 8. That also was something new for the time. But the period to Windows XP was a hard one, where a lot of people were mad because a lot of their hardware left behind. Another period when that happened is Windows 7. People that had Windows XP were not automatically capable of going to Windows 7. There were a lot of Windows XP machines that didn't have the minimum requirements for Windows 7. Once again, these two phases were almost as high in minimum requirements as what Windows 11 is asking today. But today, we've got a lot more of the voices on the internet of people being mad at that. But I had the people being mad as a tech guy. I would go and, they would have a Windows XP machine, for example, that they couldn't understand why, I said, well, you got to buy a new PC because that PC won't run Windows 7 or won't run it well enough that it's going to be worth. And of course, it's always the same thing. Your machine works. And it's totally understandable that if you're not, tech savvy and you're not a tech enthusiast, what happens is that you don't understand why a perfectly running machine should be changed. And it's totally understandable. I mean, these machines cost money. They're not free. You got to spend some money to get them. So, at some point, it's totally understandable that that's the way it's happening. But Windows 11 puts a higher bar, but it's the same as Windows 7 did for Windows XP and Windows XP did for the past of Windows 98 and Millennium and so on. What probably most people hated of Windows 10, if I had to say one thing, is those dreadful 2 updates a year that happened for a long time. And these silly names, creators update and so on that they gave. I think that probably would be the most negative part of Windows 10 for most people. If Microsoft would have just relaxed and done it once a year and worked to make them as good as possible, because by doing 2 a year, there were higher risks of problems, and there were a few of the updates that weren't that fantastic for some users. But the other thing that I liked, and the idea behind something that I really enjoyed in Windows 10, was the fact that they were talking about how you could have an operating system forever that's updated once a year at least, and that will always have the latest features and always have, be kind of retouched here and there. And, let's face it, if you don't have the minimum requirements, they could have slapped Windows 11 interface on Windows 10 and say, hey, this is Windows 10 now, today, the way it is. But they decided not to go in that direction. And I think one of the things that I would have loved, the idea of a perpetual updated Windows, and instead of calling it 10, and we talked about it many years ago when we were talking about the name of Windows and the numbering system. If you had one Windows that was updated constantly, why not just call it Windows? Get the numbers out. No more numbers. No more numbering system. You've got Windows, and that's it. But now that's not the way that it's going forward. But, if I think the negatives for a lot of people are the updates. But I think the positive was the fact that, first of all, there were many positive for a lot of people. The bringing back the start menu again after a Windows 8 fiasco that people didn't like already pleased a lot of people. But I think also that, it's free. You got there. You could have your old PC working. There's a lot of positive points about it. If we take out, mostly the dreadful updates that they pushed on us a few times. There are a lot of positives about Windows 10, that's for sure. So what's your positive? What's your negative? Let us know. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.